is a little bit, but how are you? How have you been?
I'm lovely. How are you, Tristan?
I am good. And I gotta ask before we even go into the Titan stuff. I was
Mm,
looking at your IMBD, not stalkerish, I promise. Um,
absolutely fine. Absolutely fine.
and I seen Bitterroot on there.
Indeed. Indeed. Yes. 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 So I did a draft of Bitterroot for Regina King and Ryan Coogler
No way. Okay,
last year
sorry.
at some point. Yeah. 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 Well, movies like that, they tend to pass through multiple hands, right?
Right.
So it's like one writer breaks the overall story, then they hire another writer who comes in with with a certain perspective, and then they do a pass, and then the director, finds another writer to do a pass, headed into production, that kind of thing. So I was one link in the chain, but it was a lovely experience. I got to meet Ryan, which was amazing. He's a really, really brilliant guy. Then I got to work with Regina, which was great. In fact, during my writing time on the project, I got a whole afternoon to sit with Regina
Oh,
and go
that's so
through.
cool.
Yeah, I went through my draft kind of scene by scene with her and was really able to gain a deeper understanding of, how an actor who's also a director approaches a script, right? Because she's got this strong ability to make sure that no one in the scene has nothing to do, right? Everyone has some kind of purpose because she's an actor and she knows what it's like to show up
Right.
on set and just not have an interesting line to say or not have an interesting action to take. So the level of detail she had, just making sure that everyone in the scene had a real purpose to be there and action they could play was really, really smart stuff. So it was a wonderful experience.
And that's so right up her alley with the work she did on Watchmen. And you've got the Tulsa riots in both, and
Absolutely.
I hope it comes. I love that book. I think Chuck Brown and was it Brad Walker,
Yes. Yeah, I think
and
so.
I would love to see that, and that would be in such great hands. That would be cool. It would be very, Watchmen was a bit divisive,
It's
but
David Walker's book, actually.
David Walker. I said Brad Walker.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. David is a friend of mine. I mean, comics is a very small community.
Hmm.
There just aren't that many of us, and so when I had an opportunity to work on a project from someone who I'm friends with, you take a little bit of extra care to make sure that you're doing service to their vision while still trying to create a movie experience that's rewarding. It's I'm very lucky. I wake up every day pretty grateful, Tristan, to have the career I have, to have the life I have. So it's just been kind of one lily pad of joy to the next.
That's awesome. Not everybody gets to say that, so that's wonderful. I do have some new people that may not know who you are or your story. So I know I asked you this before, but can you tell everybody how you got into comics?
Absolutely. So I'm Bryan Hill, and currently I'm a screenwriter. I'm a writer producer for television. I also write comics. How I got into comics? Well, it was difficult. It was difficult. I always wanted to write comic books, even before I was working in Hollywood. That was really the goal. But it was a tricky business to find my way into. So, I would submit things, submit scripts, and didn't get very far that way. But I was working on a show called Ash versus Evil Dead. It was my first television job.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a staff writer, is what they're called. That's basically a glorified name for a rookie. Um, but I was working under a showrunner named Mark Verheiden, who is very, very experienced with comics, written a ton of them. He also wrote Time Cop. He's just a brilliant guy, lovely, lovely guy. And, I think around that time, because I was working in TV, I had that book Postal that I got together with Matt Hawkins, who really gave me my first shot at doing comics. And so that all that kind of happened at the same time. I had sold a screenplay, moved to LA, started working in TV, was working on Postal, and then everything kind of came together after that. You really just need one publisher to take a chance on you with one project, right? And once that happens, if you did a decent job on the project, you'll get more. It's a snowball effect how we built his
Right.
career. You know, it's piece by piece, and then eventually, hopefully, gravity takes over, and you can just keep working and keep getting better at your craft.
That's awesome. I talked to you during season 3 of Titans. And
Mm,
after I had talked to you, I had finished the season out, and I love Teen Titans in general. I think they're a great team. Season 3 wasn't my favorite season. And
sure.
I wanted to say right off the bat, I don't know what changed. I don't know what it is, or if it's just I love, Brother Blood and this whole storyline. But this season has been so good. And I wondered
Well,
if there
glad.
was anything, like if there was a change, if there was something that, maybe going through, through Mother Mayhem and stuff like that, something that kind of changed in the writing process, or if it's just, more characters that I like.
Well, I'm not sure it's a matter of the writing process changing as much as how the characters influence the story, right? Because season 3 was a very Gotham heavy story
Yes.
and didn't, to many people, feel very Titans because it was so mired in the Gotham of it all, right?
Yeah.
And that was part and parcel of that narrative, Red Hood, dealing with Jonathan Crane, all of those things. This season 4, we are not in Gotham. We're dealing with Brother Blood, Mother Mayhem. We're a bit more in, I guess, what would be the center frequency of a Titans style story.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that people are responding to what we're doing here. So it's usually not necessarily a change. It's a bit like notice my background. It's a bit like a Bond film, right? The film is dominated by whoever the villain is. So
That's
if
very
you like
true. Yeah.
if you like Mads Mikkelsen, then you're going to really enjoy Casino Royale. If you don't particularly like Christoph Waltz's Blofeld, you might not love Spectre that much, right?
Right.
So it has that kind of effect. But I'm really excited about how we can deal with the occult, how we can deal with some more metaphysical elements here. It gets a little more cosmic than we've gotten before. A lot of horror elements that you saw in season 1 have returned a bit here in season 4. So
Yeah.
it's a really fun, rewarding show to work on, and all credit due to Greg Walker, the showrunner. Just a lovely, lovely man.
Well, and I also think it has a lot to do with we as comic book fans, we have our own versions, right? We
Mm,
picture Bruce, like I love the actor that played Bruce Wayne, great actor. But Bruce to me is wouldn't cross that line. So that was, we all have our own idealized versions of
sure.
what characters are supposed to be. And that was the difference. And this time it feels very centered around these characters that we're learning more about. We're getting to see Beast Boy expanded upon for the very first
Mm,
time.
mm,
And
yeah.
and I think it's wonderful. And what's it like kind of your process as far as like did you go through and read all of the, uh I can't
Marv
Sebastian.
Wolfman
Yeah,
stuff,
Marv
and
Wolfman.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Did you go
Wolfman
back
Perez stuff.
through? Yes.
I did. But because I'm very like steeped in comic book culture. One of the brilliant things about working on one of these DC shows is you get tons of comics just sent to you that you can
Oh, that's
read
cool.
and absorb. So I certainly did, just to make sure that I was fluent in books that were slightly before my time, but I
Right.
know were hugely influential. And then, of course, you have Jeff Johns, who is a walking encyclopedia of comic book knowledge, right? And so Jeff, any question I have, I can just ask him, and he'll have an answer to that question, and then an answer to the question I haven't asked Jeff, but I will ask, and then just kind of goes down the line, right? So yeah, I certainly did. I know many of the other writers, they dive into the books all the time. Maybe different books speak to them. Maybe more of the contemporary stuff they're spending time with. Some people spend more time with some of the older stuff, 70s stuff. All kind of varies.
Oh yeah, and it's got to be. I don't know, maybe it's just something that I look up to and have always aspired to do, but it's got to be kind of neat. Delivering those stories, seeing these stories that you grew up with kind of blossom and come to life right in front of your eyes.
I'll tell you, Tristan. I'm generally very cool about all of the Hollywood moments. I'm a pretty cool cucumber. I can bluff my way through a poker game, right? But I remember on season 1, because we go up to Toronto to produce our episodes. So we're in Toronto while the episodes are shooting for the better part of 2 weeks while production is happening. And I remember being there, and it was a long shooting night. We shoot a lot of nights on the show because superheroes tend to do their business at night, as
Right.
ours do, right? So it's a lot of late nights, and you get tired, and Toronto is terribly cold. You can get a little grumpy, all that can happen. And I was kind of just getting a little frustrated, irritated, just not with the production, it was fine, but just with the weather and the thing and the rest of it being on set, the stops and the starts, the whole deal, losing a bit of patience. And then I turned around and I saw Brenton wearing the Robin outfit. This is season 1, but he was
Oh,
still wearing the
wow.
Robin outfit. And it was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had because I'm just standing in front of Robin. He's just standing right in front of me. Right?
That's so cool.
And I said the same thing to him this season when I was up in Toronto producing the episodes I was writing. Just every time he's in that Nightwing suit, it's just like I'm standing next to Nightwing, and it's the craziest thing, And those moments are priceless. You really just hold on to them, and it makes all of the couch surfing, all of the really dark times I had trying to build the career, all of the ramen noodle meals I had, makes it all worth it to get to the point. So if you're out there and you're, kind of pushing yourself to have a creative career and you're going through the ups and downs, just stick with it. It is worth it on the other side. Trust me.
That's so cool. And in seeing his progression into Nightwing and in the leader of the Titans, was that something you wanted to see happen throughout these years?
Well, absolutely. When you're working on a television show, you want the actors to have space to grow with the character, right? Nobody wants to just play a character that doesn't evolve, that just
Right.
does the same thing every time and all of that. So Brenton and really all of the actors are in deep communication with Greg, the showrunner, and many of us in the writers' room. And I have a pretty good relationship with all of them because I've been there since the first season. I'm one of the inaugural Titans writers. And so I've spoken to Brenton at length about, what he's interested in, what he finds interesting about the character, what he wants to explore. Greg has had those same, conversations with Brenton. So yeah, we put all of that stuff in there. And same thing with Anna, same thing with Ryan, same thing with Tegan, and now Jay playing Tim Drake. I try to make a point of spending time with the actors to find out what their creative interests are, and then weaving those things into the story as much as I can so they can kind of grow into the space. And it's more rewarding for them and hopefully more rewarding for people who watch the show.
Oh, most definitely. I love what, the Tegan plays Raven.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Seeing her grow, and she was very young when she was cast.
Oh,
and she's grown up.
Young.
And she's a beautiful young woman at this point. And it's really neat to see that character progression and how well they've done for themselves and how well they've really honed in the role. But every time she's on the screen, she kills it. She's amazing. I love her.
Yeah, well, Tegan is like my little sister, right? She's
Aww.
because she was very young when I was on the first season, and that was my first season of hour-long television. I had done Evil Dead, but those were half-hour episodes,
right?
So it was a little different. And so she was kind of new to this whole thing, and I was new to this whole thing, and I got to work on an episode in season 1 that was very Rachel focused. So it was really great to watch her, approach that character, and then just kind of, like you said, kind of watch her grow and change as a person at the same time as the character is going through things. Yeah. And I tried to reflect some of that change in the work I did in episode 2 of season 4, which is very much a parallel to Rachel's experiences in season 1. It's except now in that episode, she's no longer the prey of
Right.
the thing. Now she's the protector of someone else who's in danger. Right. So yeah, you kind of work those things in, and she's lovely and very, very talented. She just finished a film not too long ago, where I think she's one of the only actors in it, where she's adrift on a boat or something. She was telling me about it. So have a keep your eyes out for that, because I'm sure she's amazing in it.
Oh, I'm sure. I love her. She does such a great job. Honestly, like they all do. She just always steals my heart because she's grown up and done so well for herself. But as far as one thing I wanted to ask
Yeah.
was we had the new kind of coming out of Tim Drake in the comic books, right? About a year ago or so ish. And now
Right.
we've got introduced to Bernard. And now we're getting his storyline with Tim and everything else. Was that something you guys wanted to include? And I think it's really well done. I actually have talked to people about it being. I wasn't a huge fan of the way they did it in the comics, but this felt more natural, more real. And I wondered if it was something, you guys saw in the comics and wanted to incorporate, or if it was something, Jeff was like, yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it.
Well, we try to reflect what if there are major current changes going on in the comics or revelations. And pardon my dogs; they're going to bark every
Oh,
now and
they're
then.
totally fine.
We try to reflect what's happening within the books themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really like, okay, well, that happened in the book. It was a big seismic event in comics. We felt like, sure, we have to reflect this in some way, because we want to have at least that spiritual connection to what's going
Yeah.
on. And Jay was really excited about being able to play the character, and do all of that. So yeah, it's all very organic. We don't go into our stories with any agenda for one thing or another thing. We
Right.
tend to just react to what's happening in the books. What has happened in the books with the characters that we have. Okay, well then let's kind of harness that and figure out what's interesting to us to use for our narrative, and how can we serve it very, very well. Same thing with Barbara Gordon. If you notice, our Barbara Gordon is on a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and this is a funny thing I learned during season 3. We had this lovely kind of sensitivity guide for people on wheelchairs, and she told me that you should never say someone is in a wheelchair because it feels confining. Instead, say they're on a wheelchair. So mind your prepositions, everyone. But
Ah.
and that was a choice because we just thought, well, it's interesting to us to have a Barbara Gordon that's on a wheelchair, so that people who may also be in the same situation can see her doggedness, can see how intrepid she is, and can relate to her strength.
Yeah.
But there are many iterations, of Batgirl. Now, if you play Gotham Knights, she's Batgirl and she's walking about and doing all the different things, right? So it's all that, it's just really a matter of where are we taking our story, what's going on in the books, and how can we find things within the books that fit well with the story we're trying to tell, and making all of those things kind of blend together in a harmony.
Mm-hmm. Have you been playing Gotham Knights?
I have been, Tristan.
I'm addicted.
I really okay. So I haven't been playing Gotham Knights. I've been playing Batgirl the game.
Yes, me too. Me too.
I haven't touched anyone else. They exist in cutscenes, but I've been all Batgirl all the time, and I'm really enjoying it. Yes, the gameplay loop has a bit of a repetitive soul. I gather that, but open world games for me are very good for my thought process because I can go around, beat some people up, watch the numbers go up, upgrade the suit, and then let the mind wander into other places.
Mm-hmm.
There's a YouTuber that I love. I shouldn't just call him that because he's a brilliant guy. His name is Jeremy Penter. He's ACG
Mm-hmm.
gaming, and sometimes I've been on his podcast, and he talks about Zen gaming the act of playing an open world game or any game really, and sort of using it as a meditative experience, I find Gotham Knights is brilliant for that. But if anyone hasn't played it, here's my suggestion. Make sure that you do all of like the Nightfall challenges or what have you, so you can open up your ability to travel faster across the map. Prioritize that, because
Yes.
that will make your thing more interesting. And then when you see Lucius Fox show up on your map, do those missions, because that will unlock fast travel, and that will take a lot of the grind out of the experience. I think a lot of people that are having a bad experience aren't prioritizing traversal, and
Yeah.
always prioritize the traversal unlocks. It will change your experience with the game.
I've been playing it on stream and I didn't unlock everything like that. I should have done it off stream because those things take a little bit of time. Instead, I've been using my bat cycle and I'm the worst driver, just running into every wall possible, just trying to get there. Like, sorry guys, it's only going to be 5 more minutes and we'll get to the mission, I promise.
Yeah, the bat cycle looks like it goes fast, but doesn't really, and so it's sort of a bit of a tricky thing to steer. Now I just do so Barbara has the Batman Arkham Cape Glide, right? So it's like, so you can do the Cape Glide, grappling hook, zip, jump, Cape Glide again, and that is generally how I'm getting around in the game. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the game. I think it was on Xbox at least. I don't know if it's still on sale, but it was on sale for 50% off around Thanksgiving. It may still be. And at $30 or $35, whatever that price is, it's definitely something worth getting.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I wouldn't say it even like comparing it to, the Arkham games. I don't think that's necessarily a fair comparison because those were so detailed. But having like the Court of Owls and being able to be the Bat family, it's a new experience that I kind of love. Now they introduced Starro and that heroic assault. Right. And I'm like, I love it. I can't really complain. I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, and it's really great co-op too. If you have a friend that also has the game, you can have a lot of fun just going around, making the numbers go up in Gotham with the pal. It's going to get compared to the Arkham games, of course.
Right.
And it does fall short of where the Arkham games landed. But my other suggestion is, don't play it like an Arkham game. You can do stealth. Stealth is possible, and you can use it, but the game doesn't push you towards stealth the same way Arkham does.
At all.
Right. So you can just go in there and blitz them all, use your weapons, use your power-ups, and the rest of it. That always felt like it's kind of a breakdown of the gameplay loop in Arkham if I had to fight a bunch of people at the same time, right?
Right.
This is a little different. They kind of want you to do those things. And it's not, especially when you're playing with Barbara. I think Robin has a bit more stealth stuff you can do. But when you're playing as Barbara, just, or Jason or Dick, just go in and fight. And you'll be fine.
Like, I've got my Barbara at the point right now where every time she gets somebody down, she heals a little bit. So I don't have to worry about anything. Like, I love it. It's super fun. Oh, you know what? You're working. Did you have to play the Far Cry games for your writing? No, I have it written down. I'm not a Far Cry person. I seen it and I was like, I got to ask. Rite of Passage.
Oh, well, I've always played the Far Cry games. So,
okay.
I have a lot of friends over at Ubisoft. And they're just really, really great folks over there. And they reached out to me and just asked me, hey, would you be interested in writing a Far Cry comic based on the villains of the Far Cry games? And I was like, sure, that sounds really fascinating. Because I was already familiar with, all the villains of those games. So I came in fluent and did a little bit of play just to kind of refresh myself on some stuff. A lot of YouTube, too. YouTube is an amazing resource to catch up on lore. If you need to
for sure
find out a thing or learn about a thing or what was going on with the Seed family in Far Cry, 5, I don't know, just go to YouTube and you'll get all the breakdowns. And so I just did all that and then went in there and just wrote.
I love when they do that and they have comic tie-ins and they can add more to the lore, because even Gotham Knights is doing that with Gilded City. So they're giving us the backstory. And I think and they did it with God of War also. I think it's really cool to have a little bit more, because even, like when you finish a game
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of have that like yearn to play it more. And I'm like, all right, I got a book. I can read a book. At least that'll get that out of the way a little bit.
Sure, sure. Yeah, it's always fun for me to be able to expand a game world out into another form. Anything I
Yeah.
can do like that. Like I did a one shot for this upcoming game, the Callisto Protocol, and I got to
Oh my
write.
gosh, you did. Okay, sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't know
yeah.
that.
I got to write like it's a single issue story. I don't know how one accesses it. It's digital, I know. There may be a physical copy in one of the tiered bundles or something. I'm not really sure how they're doing it, but it was an opportunity for me to take a character that's in the game and give her some backstory that would tie into the events, and that's always fun. I like swimming around in other people's universes whenever I can.
So that means you know Callisto Protocol spoilers.
I might. I might.
That looks really really good. I'm looking forward to it.
Well,
Um,
if this
is your
wasn't
book
just
out?
kombucha, perhaps I would share. But because this is just kombucha, uh, I'm afraid an interrogation would be a little difficult on a Wednesday.
Is your book out yet, or is it coming out?
I believe it's coming out. I'm terrible about knowing release dates of what I'm working on. It's awful. I should get much better about it. But I think it's coming out with the game when the game releases in some ways. I'm,
So maybe
I'm,
next
I'm,
week.
I'm chuckling at random dude draws who's
A
uh,
megabyte.
a mega pint.
That's right, a megabyte.
I have a
Oh,
mega
that's
pint.
too funny. Can you tell us what character it's about? I don't
Mm.
want to like push too much.
It's the character's named Danny, and she is one of the kind of central protagonists of the game. And I shouldn't say more than that, but
Okay,
it's
that's
cool.
fair.
It's a great game, and the world is very moody and atmospheric. It feels really Ridley Scott. So
Ooh,
it's I think some of the Dead Space folks are working on it, so it has all of that John Carpenter in there. It really is like a John Carpenter meets Ridley Scott experience, is how I would describe it.
that's awesome. Plus, I love it's Karen. Oh, I always mess up the last name. Fukihara. I love her
Yes,
in The Boys, so I'm excited to see what she can do in a video game.
and her character was the one I was writing. So
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Is it different writing for a game like that, or Far Cry as compared to writing The Outsiders or something like that?
Well, because games have gotten so cinematic, there's a lot there that you can work with. It's not like having to write a comic book Mario Brothers tie-in back in
Right.
1984 or something, right? Where you just basically you don't have much story to work with, because these games have all this lore, all this stuff. It's pretty easy to come in there and do some work on it. So it's very similar to the work that you would do for TV or film. There's kind of a intersection now in terms of
Mm-hmm.
narrative depth between gaming, television, film, comics, and all of the different media forms tend to have the same level of thought now.
Right.
So it's pretty easy to move between, all of these.
And you also did and again, I haven't read it. I'm a DC person. I apologize, but
Mm.
how did Black Panther Unconquered come about?
Oh, so Will Moss, an editor over at Marvel, is just a pal of mine. And he knows that with my schedule, it's difficult for me to do a monthly book
Right.
just because of all the different things I'm working on. It's just kind of hard for me to do that. But I'm always interested in, a single issue thing, a mini series, that sort of deal. And so he emailed me and said, "Hey, Bryan, Black Panther 2 is coming out. Would you be interested in writing a one shot that's not a tie into the movie, but just kind of coming out coordinated with the film?" And I was, because I had done the Killmonger miniseries before,
Right.
but I hadn't been able to write much T'Challa in that miniseries because I was focused on Eric. I was focused on Killmonger. So to be able to write T'Challa was pretty seductive because I hadn't gotten an opportunity to do that. And I was really in the mood, Tristan, for just a straightforward, heroic action adventure thriller story. Sometimes I just want to throw the ball over the center of the plate,
Right.
and it felt like a wonderful opportunity to be able to do that. So I jumped at it. And Will's such a great person that it's hard for me to tell him no.
That's fair. I get it. I know it just came out, but can you tell us a little bit about what happens in the issue?
Sure. Well, the issue is a pretty simple story. It's about T'Challa is in a place where he's trying to reconcile his relationship to his spirituality, to the gods, to their role in kind of protecting, goodness, as it were. While this is happening, a nefarious villain marches into a peaceful village looking for an ancient artifact that he believes will give him some dark spiritual power. And so T'Challa has to engage him, stop him from getting the artifact, and in the process of that story, he's forced to confront kind of his own faith in his own gods and the role they may play in his destiny and in the days to come.
That seems interesting enough. I haven't seen the new Black Panther film. I'm such a DC person that I've become a shill at this point. So
it's quite all right, there's so much Marvel coming out all the time. I'm still catching up.
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen most of the series that they've put out recently. I might watch an episode or something just to kind of check in what they're doing, but I don't have the time to do 8 episodes and all of that. So, I'm way behind on things. And I tend to catch the films when they come to streaming these days, because it's just, I'm so busy. And just finding the time to be able to just go to a theater and catch up on every single one, I totally understand.
And they're good quality. It's not anything like that. It's just there's so much, and there's still stuff in phase 3 I haven't seen, so I'm very selective with what I spend my time with, because I like reading. I prefer reading, but if something like She-Hulk interested me, that one I made sure I watched. But I'll wait for Black Panther for streaming just because I'm lazy. Just saying.
Well, the really great thing about Marvel is they have so many different kinds of experiences on offer that you can just like, okay, well, this is interesting to me because of its thematics, its tone, whatever. I'm going to check in with this one, but I may not have to check in with that one, and so it's great that way to kind of pick and choose. I do intend to get to the film probably this week. I'm going to actually go watch it, but I've heard it's very strong from people that have had time to watch it. I've just been
emotional. That's what I've heard is the emotion. I'm just a crybaby anyways. Like I know,
and that's the other thing.
It's coming.
I know it's going to kind of put me on an emotional roller coaster because of Chadwick's passing. So I have to kind of get myself into the place for that experience. I felt the same way about No Time to Die when it came out. I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch this, but I need to get into the place where I want to watch Daniel Craig's last Bond film,
right.
So that's really what it is. And I've just been so packed with work that I'm like, I don't know if I can handle an existential crisis today because I have other things
totally get it. That's The Walking Dead just ended, and it's like the whole time I'm like, I gotta watch it twice because tears were streaming down the whole time. Like, I got it. I for 3 days I'm like thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, all right, calm down. It's okay. It's not the end. It's not the end. I promise.
Right.
I meant to ask you when we were talking about Titans, so I want to kind of
circle back.
Yes. So, was there a hint at maybe a Superman cameo, or am I looking too much into it?
Oh, well, I mean, those kinds of trade secrets, I shouldn't really talk about, you see. I guess people will just have to continue to watch the show.
That's right.
See where it goes.
Does the mess with Warner Brothers and Discovery and all of that affect you guys over there? I mean, I know it's HBO Max now, but does that affect like your future?
Not particularly. We're pretty inoculated from the business politics of things, and I'm grateful for that. And
Yeah.
when you work in Hollywood, you get used to different leadership regimes coming in and out of places you're working. It's just part and parcel of being
Right.
part of this business. So everyone's pretty fluid, and the people at Warner Brothers have been lovely. The people at HBO have been lovely. So we haven't had any unique issues because of that. I think that's probably more of a corporate thing.
Right.
They're dealing with that because they're steeped in that corporate infrastructure. We're just creatives. We just clap our cymbals when they wind us up and put us on a table. So we don't have to worry about such things like that. Those kinds of things are what grown-ups think about.
Yeah, that leave it to the adults.
Hmm. Leave it to the
Is
adults.
was and I can't remember if I'm misremembering or not, but when they did Fandom, I
Yeah.
know Brandon did a video kind of announcing, season 4. Did he also were you guys also approved for season 5 at that point also?
Oh, well, yeah, that also goes into the kind
Yeah.
of corporate aspect of it. Again, this goes back to me in release dates. I genuinely I pay no attention until people call me and tell me a thing and my presence is actually required. I I'm just kind of chilling on the beach somewhere with a cocktail. So that would be a better question for the showrunner, for Greg. I have no idea. I just wait for my watch to beep and then I look down and then I gather my things and head back to headquarters. Right now,
That's too
I am
funny.
very much enjoying my vacation, so I haven't been keying into any of the business.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Is there anyone like as a fan, right?
Mm,
Cuz that's what you kind of were before this. When you went into this,
yeah,
was there anyone like that you wanted to bring on the team? We had Aqualad and stuff before, and was
right,
there
right.
anyone you specifically like, Tara or anyone you had been interested in bringing on? I know we got Jinx too now.
Yeah, well, all of the characters we've had have been characters I've been really interested in writing. I was always more interested in being able to work with the Titans themselves. The kind of the core of the group really drew me in at first because that was the script that I read that
Mhm.
made me interested in wanting to be on the show, right? Those, like Nightwing, Starfire, Rachel, Gar, now Connor, and Tim, those characters, I find them super compelling. But Lisa is awesome as Jinx, and she's just got a great energy. She's so fun to have on set, and she has the most charming accent. You could just listen to
Yes.
her like speak the alphabet, and it's wonderful.
Read the phone book.
And then also Curran Walters, who plays Jason Todd. He's a really just dedicated actor, and working with him on season 2 and season 3 wasn't on one. Well, it sort of was on one, but not really. He had an episode, what have you. But I didn't get to work with him until really 2 and 3. Um, he's just a really, really great guy and become a good friend, And so that's kind of why I wake up in the morning. But yeah, Tara's a cool character. There are plenty of cool characters.
For sure.
Artemis is interesting. There's so many interesting characters that we could explore, but those choices are a bit more in the Greg Berlanti, Greg Walker, Jeff
Yeah.
Johns side of the ball. I run the
What
plays. I don't call the plays.
what about and I promise I'll quit pressing for too many answers in the
No, please
future,
do.
but we've got some up in the air. You've got Dove out there, you've got Red
Sure,
Hood out there, and you've got Donna. Can we
sure.
expect us maybe see them? Maybe, possibly.
Anything is possible.
Anything.
Um,
Such a
I I
political answer.
I will say that both Minka Kelly and Connor Leslie, Dove and Donna Troy, respectively, are awesome people. and I really enjoyed working with them both. I learned a lot from them both. They're very wise people too, and they have really interesting perspectives. So I am personally always excited at the opportunity to work with them again, but I can't say yay or nay. We have
Right.
to, shake the magic 8 ball and see what comes up.
That's right. We got to watch it. I love it. And I love that we were able to. We've had Connor for a bit now, but now you brought in Lex and he's exploring that side of him. And then it was kind of ripped away. Like, are we going to get a little bit more of Connor's character progression? Is besides like being evil for a minute and a half?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of shades and dimension to what Connor is going through this season. And that kind of harkens back to your earlier question about arcs and all of that. And so Josh Orkin, who plays Connor, Superboy, is a really smart guy, and just a really studious actor, and asks such good questions. We always wanted to give him more and more to chew on. So what I will say is, it's not simply an arc of he goes evil, then he's not. It's
Right.
more layered and way more complex than that. And I think people would be really excited about the story we're telling with Connor this year. And Josh's work in the series this year is so strong. So strong. Love that guy. He's a really nice guy too.
And he looks like the embodiment of Connor. And those when he first showed up and he was having the kind of shootout in the farmhouse and he had crypto, those scenes are still some of my favorite work in the series because they were so well shot and they were so good. And it's nice to see like him want to learn more, but also be a little nervous because it's very natural, right? And
Sure.
and he does such a good job. Robert asked a really good question. I didn't even think about it because I was bawling that entire episode. How painful was it to kill off Hawk?
Oh, look, Alan Richson is awesome. Like, Alan's like the dude you wanted to be when you were 12. Like, it's like he came out of a factory of just like awesome badass dudes, right? And he's a really nice guy as well. Just like, and he's got an Instagram. He's very spiritual. So he talks about his faith a lot. On Sundays he does that whole thing. He was always a positive force, and it was you never want to see an actor like that who's such a gift to the world of your show go. But I will say, I'm so happy for him because now with that massive success he's having with Reacher,
oh yeah,
he's carrying a show that's built around all of his talents. Like, I'm just really happy for the guy, and it couldn't happen to like a better person. He's just a really nice guy. So while it was sad to see him go, it is great to see him thrive.
Not only that, but he got a great send off with his brother, and the way that they did that, it was really sad in episode 3 where he died, and you didn't expect it. You expect the day to be saved. But then when they really got that kind of closure for him, it felt whole.
Sure. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, we try not to just arbitrarily kick the audience down the stairs with the loss of a character. And I personally believe that you want to do all these things with intention. You don't just want to stunt things, right? I get a little frustrated with television series that seem to always be chasing the red wedding moment. It's almost like you have to go through it and wait for them to do a red wedding and say, okay, well, you got that out of your system. Maybe you'll start telling stories again.
Right.
But we tried to, just make sure that everything has a good emotional anchor. And so, it was a nice send off. It had layers to it, which I appreciate.
One more question about Titans, I promise. I love this show this season. How did you decide to make, it was essentially Sebastian is going to be essentially Brother Blood, and Rachel both be siblings?
Well, it stood to reason that if they're kind of both darkly created from, a relationship with Trigon, that at least in a cosmic spiritual sense, they would be related in some way, right?
Right.
And then sort of exploring that very unique idea of sibling, because no one else can really understand what it's like to be part demon, except for someone who's part demon.
Mm-hmm.
Your Tinder choices are pretty narrow at that point, right? So
Yeah.
um it's that just felt like an interesting dynamic. Then Joseph responded to it really well, and we had a great conversation by the craft service truck. Also a guy with a lovely accent, Joseph, a guy I could listen to all day. And then and Tegan responded to it as well, and so yeah, it just seemed like a fun thing to kind of explore. But the relationship is not so much classically sibling as much as they're both descended from the same evil, but they are making very different choices.
Yeah. And I liked how it tied it back to season 1. I thought that was really clever.
I'd love to tell you that we organized all of that from the beginning, and so I will. Whether or not you
Totally
believe it
planned.
is up to you, but I will say we did. Yes,
Absolutely. I believe it. I lied. Last question about Titans.
please.
The future scenes with Dick and Corey.
Yes.
Will we get some sort of payoff with that by chance?
Oh, I mean, it wouldn't it be interesting to see what Dick and Corey are going to be up to this season? The good thing is you can watch it and find out.
I love the answers.
But yeah, but Brenton's great, Anna's great, and their work is really good. Oh, now since I'm talking about Anna, I'm just going to plug her movie. So Anna is the lead of a movie called Nanny that I believe has a limited theatrical run starting in a couple weeks, but will also be premiering on Amazon Prime. And it's a horror film directed by Nikyata Jutu, who's a brilliant filmmaker, and the movie is incredible. I got to see it. Anna gave me a screening ticket, so I was able to watch it not too long ago. And it's just a really great film. And she is luminous in it. So for all the Anna Diop fans out there, make sure you check her out in Nanny, because her work is amazing. And I'm sure she's, in a whole different, kind of world of interest now because of what she's doing, both on Titans and in that film.
Oh yeah, that's interesting to
You
see
see,
her in a
I have to
different.
plug all my friends, right? You see?
That's awesome. I love it. I would have never known about it, and if it's coming to streaming, it would be something I check out just because I enjoy your work in Titans. But that's perfect. I love it.
Yeah, the film is called Nanny, so make sure you check that one out.
And she's great. She really is.
She is. She really is.
So, what are your do you have any future stories planned? Do you have anything in the bag that you're waiting to come out, or?
I have quite a few things that I can't specifically talk about, but they should be being announced soon. So what I will say is, I have a kind of big dealy comic book announcement that will be on the way very, very shortly.
Yay.
And when that comes out, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. I'm also working on a couple of screenplay assignments that are, a little high profile that you'll be hearing about soon, and perhaps even a television project
Oh,
of my own
awesome.
that's coming together. So yeah, and to answer Tevia's question, yes, I have two indie books that I'm working on currently, and all of this stuff will probably be first quarter 2023, I would imagine.
Oh,
So
okay.
just kind of pay attention, to kind of me on social media and the rest of it, and I'll be talking about that stuff soon. But yeah, I'm going to be on shelves a little more in 2023 than I was in 2022. That is for sure.
Yeah, and if you can't wait, you can always check out Chariot if you were looking for indie work.
Yeah, you can always check out Chariot. That
Yeah.
I'm not involved in the adaptation of that scheduling. I just couldn't be. But I hear that the director Joseph Kosinski, guy who did Tron and a bunch of other things, is working on it and putting that together. And I hear that's going fairly well. It's a conversation I have to have with Axel Alonso, the guy who, former Marvel guy who now has
Yeah.
AWA. But yeah. So that book is out there, and
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of it. Shout out to Priscilla Petrates, who did the art for that book, and her colorist Marco Lesko. It's just a vivid visual experience, and that's largely because of Priscilla and Marco, not me. I just
It's
kind of wrote words.
beautiful.
They did such a good job. And thank you, Tavia, for the compliment. I saw your message there. But yeah, so that's out there as well. So yeah, I have a lot more coming. I was a little removed from publishing for a bit because I was doing screenwriting stuff and all the
Right.
IMDb stuff that you see. But I do want to have a bigger presence in stores again because I like that connection that I have with readers. When you write a screenplay, even if you make a bunch of money on it, maybe 20 people will ever read it. If they make it, maybe that gets up into the hundreds or something. But we're
Right.
talking like film crew, actors, like people who are making it. Not many people are sitting down to read it and enjoy it. But comics, you get to have thousands of people who are reading your stories, having a decent experience, hopefully, with it. And then I get to also connect with them on social media and find out, how they felt about what I did or what they would have wanted me to do better. I also appreciate the criticism as much as I appreciate the praise, because it gives me a sense of how am I connecting with people? How am I working, in a way that is relating to people, and I can make adjustments. And it helps my writing in general, I think. And that's what I really love about it, because you don't get audience feedback on a screenplay until they make a movie. And
Right.
oftentimes the movie they made has nothing to do with the screenplay you wrote.
Oh, no.
So, you're not, it's not really what you wrote. So it's not the best way to kind of get, I think television's a little more like that because you're workshopping the script, and the script is more kind of locked in. So yeah, they're shooting your words, but it's still not the same thing as the feedback I get from like the recent Black Panther issue, or even something that people didn't particularly like that I wrote, that X-Men book, Fallen Angels, right?
I
That
wasn't
was
going to mention it. I promise.
I have no ego in this game, right? And so that didn't come together the way I would have liked it to come together. It didn't come together for readers, by and large. There are people that had a good experience with it, and I appreciate all of them. But knowing kind of how that was received, it helps me sort of figure out, okay, let me make this adjustment or that adjustment, or maybe I was just in a different frequency than what fans of the X-Men wanted to experience at the time. It's always good to know that stuff. And that kind of real-time feedback is invaluable to me because it lets me make adjustments and grow and mature as a storyteller in a way that's a little harder and a little slower when you're working on screenplays or even television shows. Easy to kind of get stuck in your own factory swing rather
Right. And
than just kind of finding out what's hitting and what's not. Comics is a lot more like music, where you just put a track out, and if people ain't dancing, they ain't dancing.
yeah.
And you're like, ooh, they don't feel that one. They like this one or like that one, or they liked a thing about it that you didn't pay a lot of attention to, but this is what they're gravitating towards. And you're like, oh, okay. Let me build more around that kind of experience, because I thought people would be into X, but they're really into Y. So let me see what I can do with Y. I think it's great. So I love it. We gotta have a thick skin in this business, but luckily, I'm made of the sterner stuff.
And I have your Instagram and your Twitter in the description if you guys want to follow them. You generally, like, from what I've seen, I'm not on the platform, but you generally are pretty good with interacting with people, right? You don't mind.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
To a degree. To a degree.
Well, I think about it like this, Tristan. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. With dreams of being a creative somehow. I went to film school. Couldn't really afford to go to film school, but I went anyway. Managed to scrape my way through it. with this idea of somehow being like a storyteller in some way. And I still have some designs on filmmaking, and I'm hopefully will be directing a feature in 2023. That's a goal I have, and I'm working towards that, and things are kind of moving in that direction. So I don't take anything for granted, right? And if someone is going to take time out of their day and money out of their pocket to pick up something I wrote, money that could go somewhere else, time that could go somewhere else, that means a lot to me. And if they're
Yeah.
going to, speak to me on social media, I'm gonna, get back to them when I can, and do it in a sincere way, right? Even if someone is a little abrasive on social media, what I've found is if someone is abrasive and you don't return that energy to them, generally they'll take their foot off the gas
Yeah.
and be a little easier to deal with. And if they're like truly irascible, they'll just get bored with your grace and find someone else to poke. It's if they don't get the reaction that they want out of you, they tend to go away and find someone else they can trigger, right? So yeah, like if you find me on Twitter, as long as there is a Twitter, we will see.
Right.
But I am there. I haven't gone to the Hive Mastodon route yet because there's only so much of this social media I can deal with. So I'm on Twitter until there's no Twitter. I'm also on Instagram, and it's really easy to find me. You just my name. Just if you type Bryan Hill, Twitter, then my Twitter comes up. My Instagram is Bryan E Hill. I think my Twitter is at Bryan Edward Hill, but easy to find me. So
Right.
yeah, like find me, and I love chatting with people. I used to have my DMs open, but now I don't. Not because of a bad experience. I was just getting so many of them, and
Right.
I found that people would write things in the DMs that were a little more personal. And I wouldn't always be able to check them on a regular basis. And then I went back in and I would see these messages, and I would be a little disappointed in myself because someone sent me something really thoughtful, about an experience they had watching the show, or they recently lost someone and this book meant something to them, that kind of thing. And I wouldn't see it for a long time. And I felt like, ooh, do I feel like I'm ignoring people? So I closed the DMs because I'm much more responsive when you just mention me, in my normal notifications. That's why I did that. But yeah, please, anyone, ask me writing questions, ask me random questions. I love to answer them. I'll never say anything bad about somebody, so don't look for the hot goss. But I'm happy to engage anyone who finds me in the digital sphere for sure.
I love that. That's so rare. It's so nice to have somebody that doesn't mind taking a few questions, even if it's just from a crazy fangirl wanting to know about Starfire and Dick Grayson. Just saying.
Well, listen, there is a very vocal community deeply interested in information about Starfire and Dick Grayson. That is what I will say.
I
And
love it though.
and they must get time. If they don't get the data, they will get my time. So I try to do the best I can with them.
That's awesome though. That's gotta say, like, it's gotta feel good to know that they're so invested in stuff that you put your hard earned, your time into.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's too cool.
It's absolutely, it's a gift. I'll be honest. I don't understand the grumpy creator. I don't understand, even when someone is like kind of mean to you about it, like who cares?
Right.
You could be. I've had terrible jobs. I've stocked fruit like overnight at grocery stores. I worked for the IRS looking at envelopes to see if
Oh
people forgot to put their check into the terrible jobs, right? And this is far, far from that. So I'm just appreciative of the whole thing. I mean, there isn't a day I don't wake up incredibly grateful
that's
for
wonderful.
what I've already been able to do. And if it all just went away tomorrow, I'd still be pretty happy, because I feel like I have achieved a lot of the things I wanted to achieve when I was a kid. And now I'm trying to be as positive a force as I can be. And when you get through a door, you try to kind of hold the door open for the next people as much as you can.
Yeah.
So, and I'm in 2023. I am also going to be working on a couple initiatives to help people get their work seen, help people
Oh,
maybe get
that's
a
so
leg in,
cool.
help people network. I've got things I need to give more to the comic book community. I haven't really. I mean, besides putting out books, doing interviews, that kind of thing. But I need to take a more active role in the comic book community and try to help people also, realize their creative goals and all that stuff. So,
That's
expect
wonderful.
a little more of me in 2023.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on. You've been wonderful, and I'm so glad you didn't mind taking the opportunity. And after your big announcements, you never know, you may get an email. I'm just saying, just putting it out there.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Tristan. I miss that rasp, so I'm glad to hear it once again. And thank you everyone for to in and all your comments. And if I didn't get to your questions, just find me on social media. Ask me whatever I didn't get to, and then I will happily answer it for you there. And everyone support Nerdette on PayPal and Venmo. I think your channel got demonetized recently or something like that. So let us all support people that are supporting creatives, because it's kind of a whole gratitude cycle. We got to keep going.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good week.
Bye, guys. Thank you all. And all the links are in the description if you want to check out Bryan and watch Titans. We needed to keep it going. Let's do that. Okay. Bye, guys.